The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Wednesday, April 19th, 2023. Thank you so much for joining me. We begin with Fox News settling with Dominion voting at the last second, agreeing to pay more than $787 million to avoid the defamation trial over its 2020 election lies. This is according to CNN Business. The settlement came just before the trial was slated to begin yesterday. In fact, lawyers were in the courtroom along with jurors ready to begin opening statements when Fox decided to settle for this extreme amount, not quite what we were hoping. Those of us who have been following this story, we know the danger that Fox News poses to this country, and the defamation suit, the billion-dollar defamation suit from Dominion Voting, was honestly one of the surefire ways that Fox News could be exposed at the level they needed to be exposed, both in terms of their propaganda, their lies, but also financially, expose them financially by honestly being rewarded more than $1 billion. If Fox News had lost this case, they surely would have been paying Dominion Voting more than $1 billion. But in most cases, settlements like this are the norm and they are expected. And so now we are dealing with Fox News's spin, the no spin zone, the fair and balanced. Here is their spin as read by Jake Tapper, who got a kick out of the hilarity and the absurdity of Fox News asserting their innocence despite settling for $787 million. Take a listen in.
Fox trying to put a positive face on what can only be interpreted as one of the ugliest and most embarrassing moments in the history of journalism. Fox issued a statement saying, quote, "We are pleased to have reached a settlement of our dispute with Dominion Voting Systems. We acknowledge the court's rulings finding certain claims about Dominion to be false. The settlement reflects," I'm sorry, this is going to be difficult to say with a straight face. "This settlement reflects Fox's continued commitment to the highest journalistic standards. We are hopeful that our decision to resolve the dispute with Dominion amicably instead of the acrimony of a divisive trial allows the country to move forward from these issues." Unquote. Let's bring back CNN legal analyst.
Okay. Journalistic integrity and journalistic standards do not go in the same sentence as Fox News, but that goes without saying. What does go in a sentence with Fox News is their undermining of democracy and the role that they continue to play in the demise of this country, the demise of our ability to do basic things together, like have common concern and care for all of the people during the pandemic enough to put on a mask or to socially distance or to even get a vaccine. All of those very simple, humane, basic humanity things that we could have done were directly sabotaged by the likes of Fox News and all of the echo chamber that follows suit. You know, that's what Fox News does. It sits atop propaganda mountain in this country. It is the lead propaganda machine in this country for the conservative movement, and it does the bidding of the conservative movement and all of the lackey channels, all of the flunky channels, the lower grade channels like Newsmax, OANN. All of these organizations simply repeat the propaganda that they get from Fox News. Now, there was one thing that was slightly different in this particular case. It's because Fox News was the primary target around the big lies because they were the ones who spewed the big lies. But Fox News found themselves in a precarious position because Newsmax and the other outlets were able to go further with these lies because, well, those were the lies that the audience craved. In other words, the audience now demanding the propaganda at levels that we would expect from 1984. It wasn't the party so much that is pushing this. It's the crowd. It's the audience, the voters, the listeners of Fox News. They wanted the big lie. And this is what Rupert Murdoch discussed along with others in some of the emails that were dropped during Discovery. We saw that one of the reasons they continued perpetuating the big lie was because if they didn't, they felt that they would lose their viewers. And so we have the sickness, we have the propaganda that is being spread, not only because it benefits Fox News, but also because, well, Fox News was in a stranglehold. They were bound by the foolishness and the ridiculousness that they created in their audience. Their audience went further and demanded the lies, so much so that Fox News felt like it had to keep up with Newsmax. It had to keep up with OANN. It had to keep up with all of the lies being promoted by organizations that merely try to mirror Fox News' success. And they got away with it. $787 billion is a lot of money. It will put a dent in Fox News, but not nearly a big enough dent to slow them down. Not even remotely. They are going to be just fine and will be able to continue spewing their lies. They will be able to continue supporting Tucker Carlson, who is at the center of the racial divide in this country, while he promotes segments where he's talking about the racism being divided by America being divided by the Democratic Party's racism. The truth of the matter is he sits atop Fox News and does the bidding of white supremacy and forwards the cause of racial division in this country. That's who he is. And we won't have the privilege of seeing him being forced to testify in this defamation lawsuit, or any of the other hosts who perpetuated the big lie. They are now protected from having to testify, and life continues for them. Fox News writes a big check, and Tucker Carlson continues to lie and divide and continues to do the bidding of white supremacy, which we'll cover in one of the upcoming segments. We've been covering the story of the 16-year-old Ralph Yarl, who was shot in the head as he attempted to pick up his siblings from a home. He went to the wrong address and unfortunately he landed at an address with a terrified 84-year-old white man with a gun who perhaps had never seen a black person in his life, because when he opened the door, he immediately began to fire. Now, that man has been arrested and finally charged. He wasn't charged initially. Per Missouri law, he was detained and then released after 24 hours while the police decided whether or not they were going to charge the man. Well, he has been charged, and Ralph Yarl survived and is recovering, thankfully. That doesn't stop Fox News' premier racist, Tucker Carlson, from using this as an opportunity to further sow discord in this country, to attack Joe Biden and the Democratic Party, but also do whatever he could to weasel his way around the reality of what's actually happening in this story. I want you to listen to this segment, because despite the reality that this is an incident that is precipitated by the amount of racism that this country is drenched in, such that a man would open up his door and immediately start firing on a child within 2 seconds, that's not the story here for Fox News or Tucker Carlson. The story is that Joe Biden is using this for racism.
The president said, and we're quoting, "No parent should have to worry that their kid will be shot after ringing the wrong doorbell." Well, that's demonstrably true. But of course, the president is saying this in order to further divide the country along racial lines and to tell a story that is, in fact, not supported by the facts, which is that black teenagers are murdered by elderly white people just for showing up on their doorsteps. Ralph Yarl, thank heaven, did not die from his injuries. He was just released from the hospital. But these kinds of mistakes do happen, and they're always sad, assuming this was a mistake. Again, we don't know all the details. This same weekend, a 20-year-old woman called Caitlin Gillis was shot and killed after her friend turned into the wrong driveway in upstate New York. A man shot her dead in the passenger seat. But there was no statement from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris about this, of course, because Kaylin Gillis was white, and therefore her death could not be used to further incite racial conflict that benefits the Democratic Party.
That was such a masterful piece of propaganda. Do you see how he seamlessly labeled this as a mistake and then immediately said afterwards, assuming it was a mistake, we don't know all of the details in the matter. So why put it out there that it's a mistake, Tucker Carlson? Because you have to soften the blow for your elderly white viewers who, for a moment, have to look in the mirror and say, wow, would I have done the same thing? As an elderly white gun-owning viewer of Fox News who is saturated daily with racism from Fox News, from Tucker Carlson. Nobody benefits more from racism than Tucker Carlson. He's literally a multimillionaire because of it. Fox News pays him some $7 to $8 million a year, probably more. Those were figures from about 2 years ago. So I'm sure they gave him a raise because he's such a prolific promoter of racism. So nobody benefits more from racism than Tucker Carlson. But instead of allowing the conversation to genuinely be about how it is that an 84-year-old white gun-owning man in this country could open up his door and immediately start firing after 2 seconds, doesn't ascertain any information, doesn't get any information about the person at his door before even opening the door, right? If you're really afraid and really terrified, then at least ask, who is it? He didn't. He opened the door and started firing, and Tucker Carlson puts this out as a mistake. So assuming it was a mistake, we don't have all the details.
But these kinds of mistakes do happen, and they're always sad, assuming this was a mistake. Again, we don't know all the details.
Wonderfully written, though. I have to give his writers credit, because that's how, if you wanted to acknowledge something was wrong without having to live in the reality that your entire viewing audience, they are the demographic that did this, right? This is, it's not that they are all individually guilty of this, but when you see a mirror reflected to you, a mirror that reflects your demographic, your age, your gun-owning status, and your penchant for fear of black people, such that if you open up the door and there's a black teenager there, you got to open up fire. You gotta gun them down, right? Tucker Carlson neutralizes that propensity by saying, oh, it's a mistake. These types of mistakes happen, assuming that it was a mistake. We don't know all the details. And then immediately goes into his diatribe about how Joe Biden doesn't care about white people.
But these kinds of mistakes do happen, and they're always sad, assuming this was a mistake. Again, we don't know all the details. This same weekend, a 20-year-old woman called Kaylin Gillis was shot and killed after her friend turned into the wrong driveway in upstate New York. A man shot her dead in the passenger seat. But there was no statement from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris about this, of course, because Kaylin Gillis was white, and therefore her death could not be used to further incite racial conflict that benefits the Democratic Party.
That's why Tucker makes the big bucks, folks, because that was masterfully done, to spin this and turn around and lay it at the feet of Joe Biden. So because Joe Biden put out a tweet, not an official statement, but a tweet saying that Ralph Yarl, I believe at the end of the tweet, he said, Ralph, we'll see you at the Oval Office when you recover. Because Joe Biden put out this tweet, this means he doesn't care about white people because he can't use the pain of white people to secure the racist vote. That's the logic. Now, yesterday I covered the story of the 20-year-old young woman who was shot in upstate New York. And I covered it right along with Ralph Yarl because of the eerily similar aspects of it. You make a mistake and turn in someone's driveway, or you inadvertently knock on someone's wrong door, and there are old white people with guns. Now, if there's anything that should be talked about in context of how these two stories connect, it is gun violence, generally speaking, gun violence as committed by old white people with guns who sit in their homes all day watching Fox News, and they are terrified of everything outside of their door, such that if a 20-year-old white girl, see, if you really want this story covered from the White House, Tucker Carlson, you have to understand that it actually is more damning for white folks than the first story because, well, quite frankly, America is used to shooting at black people. And so if Joe Biden wanted to run up the scoreboard, he most certainly could run up the scoreboard on gun violence as it is committed in this country because of how many people have guns who sit behind their doors terrified all day and all night because of the media they consume, namely Fox News. Guarantee you each of those shooters were rabid consumers of Fox News and Tucker Carlson. I mean, it's just almost a certainty considering that Tucker Carlson has the leading cable show in the country. And so obviously he continues to do. I've never seen somebody so culpable for so much just continue to go harder in the paint. This is Tucker's folly. If there's any folly for Tucker Carlson, is that he is going to fall on his own pride, his own ego, and his own success. Much like Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is now running into a problem because he's bitten off more than he could chew with this fight with Disney because he was so successful all of these years getting away with what he did. He believed that he could take on Disney and win. Same with Tucker Carlson. He is so successful at promoting hate and racism that one day it will bite him in the butt.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions. Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. Yep. Welcome back. So Twitter, underneath the direction of Elon Musk, has changed its, quote, hateful conduct policy, and it has removed standing protections for its transgender users. This is according to NBC News. The advocacy group GLAAD condemned the move. I want to read a couple of paragraphs from this so we can get the background on it, but I just want to begin by saying this. That was one of the reasons. Let's be sure. That's one of the reasons that Elon Musk purchased Twitter, so that he could create the platform that right-wingers dreamed of, which was the ability to say anything they wanted, no matter how hate-filled it was, no matter how violent it was, no matter how racist it was, no matter how homophobic or transphobic it was. Conservatives need to be able to express their bigotry without accountability, and they couldn't do that on a platform that respected the rights and the just general well-being of other human beings. Twitter tried and did a, relatively decent job. And I want to say this, doing a relatively decent job in the era of the internet is not even really doing a whole lot. The previous Twitter owners basically kept Twitter from becoming 4chan. Elon Musk purchased it so that he could accelerate the demise of Twitter and turn it into 4chan. And here's an example from from NBCnews.com. Quote, Twitter sparked backlash this week after some users noticed it had quietly removed language in its hateful conduct policy that explicitly protected transgender people from online harassment. The social media platform had prohibited the targeted misgendering or dead naming of transgender people since 2018. Some online noticed this month that the sentence had been plucked from Twitter's section on slurs and tropes, while all other descriptions of policy violations remained intact. Archives captured by the Wayback Machine showed the previous version still existed April 7th, the day Twitter announced it had updated its abuse, harassment, and policy to redefine targeted harassment. But by the next day, the line had disappeared. Funny, that's a pretty smooth technique. Make the announcement the day before and then make the change the next day. But the little things, folks, it's the little things that they do that helps them to get away with what they get away with. Continuing on, the advocacy group GLAAD condemned the move in a statement Tuesday, calling it the latest in a series of changes that have made the platform less safe for people and advertisers. Quote, Twitter's hateful conduct policy protected trans people from targeted misgendering and dead naming for close to 5 years, and now they mysteriously removed it without a word, GLAAD President and CEO Sarah Kate Ellis said in a statement. This is unacceptable in any climate, and doubly unacceptable when you look at the barrage of disinformation and hate about trans people from right-wing media personalities, politicians, and the extremists they bolster. End quote. And that's the thing, right? This is the season. This is the exact season that the trans community is under a targeted attack like nothing we've seen in a long time. The amount of disinformation that's going out, that's you can barely even argue with people because they are so committed to their disinformation, right? They are completely and Elon Musk himself committed and totally committed to the idea of parents sterilizing their children when that's not happening. Comparing and saying that puberty blockers are analogous to sterilization. This is a Matt Walsh Daily Wire, what is a woman type of lie. And that has saturated this conversation so much so that it is now just a standardized thought, like in the minds of people who oppose the ability of parents and children and adults even. We're not even talking about trans children only. We're talking about adults. People who are opposed to transgender people existing. Let's just make it clear. There's a set of people who do not want transgender people to exist. That group, they are committed to the disinformation and the lie that puberty blockers are equivalent to sterilization. That's where we are right now, right? The misinformation, the accusations of grooming and pedophilia, which we have seen time after time. Nobody has brought me a single case of a transgender person committing an act like this. I'm not going to say that it doesn't exist because I just generally think human beings are disgusting people, right? We are wretches undone, and we honestly do need to fix this sick world where we regularly harm children. But I haven't seen a single case of a transgender person molesting and raping a child. I have more cases than I can keep up with of conservative religious zealots and priests and preachers and pastors, people who claim the same God I claim. I have more examples of those people committing the most atrocious and heinous acts of grooming and pedophilia, but it is all being scapegoated onto the LGBTQIA community. Pound for pound, example by example, there's nobody on this planet who can show me otherwise because the history is proven. There's just too many years of assault being committed by religious institutions against women and children, rape, molestation, grooming. It's just too many years of backlog of the Catholic Church alone doing this to even compare it to a single case of a child or a woman being harmed at a drag show, right? They simply cannot do it, but that does not prevent them from creating this alternate reality and now being assisted by Elon Musk by essentially turning Twitter into 4chan. I mean, the uptick in racist language that happened immediately after Elon Musk purchased it, that was the point. And now you've got Elon Musk out here pushing the misinformation about sterilization. No parent is sterilizing their children. Not a single one, but he creates a poll saying, should parents who sterilize their children be arrested and sent to jail for the rest of their life? And Twitter explodes, right? That is part of this misinformation campaign. It is intentional. It is intentional for multiple reasons. They need a scapegoat, yes, but they absolutely need a way to divide and give this country a target of people that they can hate freely, that they can express their bigotry freely, that they can go out and let their inner hatred fly free. Because that's what conservatism is operated off of. That's why this boycott against Bud Light didn't really work, because it doesn't hit all the it got close, but it did not hit all of the buttons that are necessary to trigger the type of outrage that conservatives are used to galvanizing. They need a level of hatred and outrage in order to continue getting political power. It is a political strategy, and it is their strategy for the new world. To be quite honest, it goes beyond the next election of 2024. 2024 is a step. 2024 is a necessary step for conservatives. That's why they are pushing all of this right now. The way they are, they're pushing this in the lead up to 2024. But the goal is a long-term goal. They have a long-term agenda, and that long-term agenda is creating a world that they can dominate through force. And they will use the hatred and the bigotry of homophobia and transphobia to be the number one tool to get right by everyone's radars. I mean, I'm thinking specifically of the black community, the black Christian community that is co-signing. Not all of them, quite a few, myself included, quite a few of us, people who roll with me in the black Christian community, we know better. We know what's going on with this sudden push of homophobia and transphobia that's coming from certain religious circles that are being funded by Charlie Kirk. We cover that. Black religious leaders being funded by Charlie Kirk, forwarding this LGBTQ hate. So we understand what's going on. We see it very clearly. The question is what can be done about it when you have the richest man in the world pushing it? When you have outlets like Fox News with more reach than any other media platform in the world pushing it? Question is what can we do about it? One thing we could do about it is to be aware of it. And the other thing that we could do about it is to be vigilant in our defense of every single group that is marginalized in this country. Whether you believe in their lifestyle or not, that's immaterial. That doesn't matter. You don't have to believe in same-sex marriage to mind your business and allow people to get married. That's not a difficult task to do because we ignore a lot about you. You guys ignore a lot about me. But at the end of the day, if we allow ourselves to be consumed by things that trigger our bigoted gene or that natural inclination that every single one of us has towards pointing towards someone else. Honestly, can I just summarize it like this before I get ready to leave this public show and go to the private show? Patreon.com/the BPD show. We got to all pause and just admit that every single one of us is capable of being triggered by a hate gene. There's something in us that triggers us, that makes us desire and want to be bigoted against someone, if for no other reason but to point the finger at them to bring direction or bring attention away from us. See, this is how my faith actually works. My faith says, look at the beam in my eye instead of worrying about the speck that is in someone else's eye. Self-examination and see how it is that we are manipulated because, oh my goodness, I'm uncomfortable, right? That person, that couple made me uncomfortable. And then immediately we're able to be manipulated because of that discomfort, that fear leading to confusion and hate, that hate leading to, as much as I would like to say the dark side, it honestly leads to people aligning with Nazis, fascists, white supremacists. And let's be clear, what's the end result of this? The end result of all of this homophobia and transphobia is to get a solid coalition of diverse people. We're diverse religiously, diverse in terms of race and ethnicity, who will all unify in their hatred and bigotry and fear of gay people, lesbians, transgender people, bisexual people, such that they will be able to create a solid block that they feel, conservatives believe, that there is a quote unquote silent majority of people who will unify with them against the LGBTQIA community and give them political and economic power. And so that's why I am serious when I say if black Christians and others, I'm talking to my people, if black Christians and others do not get control over their homophobia and their transphobia, they will in short order find themselves marching alongside with the very people who want to lynch us, the very people who want to ban the teaching of critical race theory, ban the teaching of Black American history, the very people who mock us when we get shot by police, who celebrate the murder of Trayvon Martin to this day, who celebrate the murder of Michael Brown to this day. Those will be your allies in your homophobia.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Patrons, stay tuned. Everyone else, we'll see you tomorrow.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.